It's episode 537 of the Locked On Texas Rangers podcast. On today's podcast, I'm ranking the top 10 international free agents that the Rangers have signed. Yes, I already did the top 10 drafted players. I already did the top 10 free agents. So I feel like this is a natural, part 3 to this series, ranking the best players the Rangers have signed internationally. Coming up, all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm your host, Brice Paterik, here today to rank the top 10 Rangers international free agents on this episode. First, I want to thank you guys so much for making Locked On Rangers your very first listen of the day. If you're not already, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Brice Paterik, follow the show at Locked On Rangers, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever the heck you get your podcasts. Now, this was a lengthy list of players that I went through. It was kind of scarce a little bit, that I was kind of stretching it, I felt like. Then I started to look a little bit harder and found some guys that did a little bit better with the Rangers than I thought they did initially, and some guys who did a little bit worse. I honestly considered putting some guys on there who didn't play with the Rangers very long but went on to have really good international or just careers in general, and Sammy Sosa was the main one that I was considering there, but I decided against it just to go with the ones who played the best for the Rangers, contributed the most to the franchise, and I feel like that makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, I did go with 10 because that has been the theme, that has been the number. So we are going to continue on that trend with 10. We're going to go in reverse order. So we're going to start with number 10. At number 10, we have Jose Leclerc. Yeah, I know you might be shocked. Like, this guy hasn't been up there that long. Surely he hasn't made that big of an impact with the Rangers already. But, he really has. Like, already he is just outside of the Rangers' top 50 in pitching career WAR. He is at 5.0. The number 50 on the list is Mike Mason. I guess tied for 49th is John Burkett, and Mike Mason at 5.3. Alex Claudio is actually on there at 5.4, tied for 47th. So he is really not that far off of being among some of the most impactful Rangers pitchers in franchise history. He's had a couple really good seasons. He's been hurt for basically all the last 2 seasons, which is a real bummer. Otherwise, he'd already be up very high on that list. But every single year since he's been in the league, he's had an ERA plus above 100, so well above league average. And 12 games in his first year, he had a 180 ERA, a 258 ERA plus the next year, 47 games, 45 and 2/3 innings, a 123 ERA plus. But his best year by far came in 2018, his age 24 season, a 1.56 ERA, 59 games. 21 games of those were finished, 57 and 2/3 innings, struck out 85 in an ERA plus of 305 in just under 60 innings. That is a really impressive start. You kind of forget how good he was on some of these teams that have been very mediocre. In 2019, he wasn't as solid. The ERA was blown up a little bit, but his ERA plus was still show that he was above league average. And even in his 2 games last year, or 2020, sorry, he didn't pitch at all last year, but he was still above league average, a 1.16 ERA plus. This guy has been nails when he's been on. He's got a nasty fastball, and he's been very, very valuable to the Rangers. Even had a 2.4 WAR season in 2018 as a reliever in under 60 innings, which is incredibly difficult to do, but he still did it. So he definitely deserves to be in the top 10 international Rangers signings of all time. So let's move on to number 9. Number 9, again, these bottom 5 guys, not as impressive, not as, I guess, bottom 3 mainly are probably going to make you wince or shake your head or scratch your head. But trust me, I did the research. These guys deserve to be up there. And number 9 on this list is Martin Perez. Yes, that's right, Martin Perez. 7 years with the Rangers, had a 4.63 ERA, but his ERA plus was, just, again, a little bit below average. Had a few pretty solid seasons. He was mainly just there, but he did provide value. His WAR with the Rangers was 5.7, which is good enough to be in the top 50 Rangers pitchers of all time. Provided some solid seasons. He really did. But again, was never quite what the Rangers expected him to be. His best season was a 2.4 WAR season in 2017 as a 26-year-old, pitched in 185 innings that year with a 4.82 ERA, which is kind of wild that was his best ERA or his best WAR season with the Rangers. But again, this guy was fine. He was pretty solid for the Rangers for quite a while. One of his better seasons, the only season he got award votes is when he finished top 10 in Rookie of the Year voting in 2013 as a 22-year-old. Had a 3.62 ERA in 20 starts, 124 and a third innings. Was a lot of pressure on this guy, a lot of hope built on this guy. Didn't quite live up to the hype, but he was solid. And again, the list is kind of bare bones, and so instead of it was basically him for Sammy Sosa, so I decided to go with him. Anyway, let's move on to number 8 on this list. Yeah, we're kind of breezing through these bottom 3 because they are not as exciting, not as fun. But number 8 on this list, that's right, it's Rougned Odor. I know you might be shaking your head, but this guy had some really solid seasons with the Rangers. He spent most of his career with the Rangers up till last season where he played for the Yankees and was present. Had some really good seasons before just absolutely falling off a cliff. I mean, he had 3 different 2-WAR seasons, 2.1 WAR season as a 21-year-old in 120 games, a 2.7 WAR season, which is a career high, according to Baseball Reference, in 2016. Really brought it there. In 2018, he had a 2.5 WAR season. But in between that, he had some pretty poor seasons, a negative 0.5 WAR in a 162-game season in 2017. That's pretty hard to do. What was even harder was his 2020, which was just straight up awful. A negative 0.6 WAR season in just 38 games, 148 plate appearances. That was really rough. But when he was good, he was good. He brought a whole lot to the Rangers. It was I believe top 20 in career home runs with the Rangers. Granted, that was all he did, but he still did do it very well, and home runs are very good. Let's see, where did he finish? 16. He was 16th in Rangers all-time in home runs with 146. Just a few behind Hank Blaylock, Mark Teixeira, Josh Hamilton as well. Did miss out on that 150 home run mark and missed out on the top 10, where if he hit 10 more, he would have been tied for Ian Kinsler and Alex Rodriguez, or at 9th. So he would have been top 10 in Rangers history in home runs. Granted, that was all he did. Did improve his defense a little bit towards the end, but again, another one of those classic what-if story. If both of those guys had turned out anywhere near what the Rangers thought they would be, maybe they wouldn't have had to tear it all down in 2020 and 2021, but that is neither here nor there. It is definitely there because it has gone away. So, number 8, Rougned Odor. Not great, but again, I'm kind of stretching it with this list because there have been not a whole lot, not as nearly as much success as I thought the Rangers had had internationally in their franchise history. But, you know, the Rangers are definitely hungry for some more success. But when I get hungry, you know what I do? That's right, I go and reach for a Built Bar. This episode is brought to you by Built Bar, the absolutely delicious and fantastic treat. It is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're so good, and they're so good for you. If you tried, the Built Bar Puffs, if you haven't, you're missing out on one of the best tasting Built Bars out there. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, marshmallowy, and they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They're so delicious. They're going to be one of your favorites. They are so freaking good. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, the Puffs including the Puffs. They're low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with these. They're better. Typical candy bar can be anywhere in the 300 calories, and these have significantly less. Most of them have 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. They're delicious. They're good for you. Go check them out. Our listeners can get a special promo code. Use our promo code. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Now, let's continue on this list with a little bit more fun, a little bit better a Rangers career, a little bit less of a bad taste left in the mouth of Rangers fans. At number 7, we have Leonis Martin. You're thinking, okay, Brice, what the heck are you doing? You said fun. Leonis Martin is fun. Center field defense is fun. Elite center field defense is really fun. This guy brought it every single day defensively. The fact that he was mediocre to bad defensively as an outfielder when he first came up is kind of crazy to me because he was one of the best defensive, if not the best defensive center fielder in Rangers franchise history. He's top 10 in defensive career Baseball Reference WAR with 5.7. He is a little bit behind Adrian Beltre, Ian Kinsler, Elvis Andrus, Jim Sundberg, and of course Pudge Rodriguez, but he's definitely in the top 10. So he's ahead of guys like IKF. He's ahead of Paul Casanova, Bump Wills, Tim Cohen as well, and Steve Buechele. This guy he's even ahead of Mark McLemore, which is kind of crazy. He's quite a ways off of Kim Cohen and Adrian Beltre for 8th and 7th, who are above him, but he was so stinking good defensively. people forget how valuable just being a significantly game-changing defensive center fielder can be. He never brought that much offense. He brought an okay amount of offense. He did have quite a few triples, a 6 triple season in 2013 and a 7 triple season in 2014. But defensively, he was just unreal. He had an absolute cannon of an arm, made great reads, was fast, and had a very accurate arm as well. And his exchange time was just lightning quick. The way that he could just pick it up and immediately have it in his hands and throwing it all in one motion and having it be accurate and still on a laser was incredibly impressive. He had a 3.5 WAR defensive season in 2013 and a 4.4 WAR defensive just season in general. Both of those were just regular WAR, not defensive WAR. He also was above average offensively both of those seasons, and a 2.3 D WAR season in 2014. That's just absolutely ridiculous and unheard of, and he still wasn't making all that much money while he was doing that for the Rangers. But again, this guy is completely underrated, and I thought he brought a whole lot to the Rangers and definitely deserved to be on this list. Now, let's go ahead and move on to number 6. This is also a blast from the past, a little bit further in the past, because he played less recently with the Rangers than Leonis Martin did. That's right. At number 6, we have Alexi Ogando, signed out of the Dominican Republic, born in San Pedro de Macorís, and made his major league debut in 2010. Was a one-time All-Star with the Rangers. That was in 2011, and he came up in 2010 and did very, very well. 44 games, 12 of those were starts. He kind of split the difference between reliever and starter, but when he was a starter, he was absolutely on, and he was on all the way until his final season in Texas, his age 30 season, where it just absolutely blew up on him. At a 6.84 ERA in 27 games, only 10 of those were starts and only 25 innings. But before that, he was really stinking good. In his All-Star season, he had a 3.51 ERA in 31 games, 29 of those were starts. He pitched 169 innings, struck out 126, had a 126 ERA plus, had an ERA plus above 100 in every year except for his final year in Texas. Also, in 2012, had another pretty solid season, not quite as long, more of a reliever in that season, 58 games, and only one of those was a start, 66 innings, but a 3.27 ERA and 66 strikeouts. The strikeouts really went up when he was pitching out of the pen. Then went back to the starting rotation in 2013, a 3.11 ERA in 18 starts, 104 innings, and 72 strikeouts, a 1.33 ERA plus. This guy brought it, was a huge part of the rotation of some of the best teams in franchise history, and deserves his respect being put on this list. Now, the next guy might not be a guy you know a whole lot about, pitched in a fairly unknown era of Rangers baseball, not a very great era of Rangers baseball, but still did fairly solid while he did it. That's right, at number 5 on this list, we have Jose Guzman. He pitched for the Rangers from 1995 all the way to 1988, then did not pitch in 89 or 90, pitched in 91, 92, and 91 and 92 for the Rangers, then finished his career off with the Chicago Cubs. He was born in Puerto Rico and played his high school ball at John F. Kennedy High School in Santa Isabela in Puerto Rico. He made his debut in September 10th, 1985 with the Rangers and had a 12.9 career WAR. Now, how much of that was with the Rangers? Let's see. Where do we go? 13.7 of that career WAR was with the Rangers. So he had a negative 0.3 WAR in 2 combined seasons with the Chicago Cubs. His best season was a 4.1 Baseball Reference WAR season in 1991, his age 28 season, where he came out, had 25 starts, 169 2/3 innings, a 3.08 ERA in 91, which is pretty solid, 125 strikeouts, an ERA plus of 1.32. Had 3 different 200-inning seasons in 1987, 1988, and also in 1992. In 92, he had a 3.66 ERA in 224 innings with 179 strikeouts and an ERA plus of 1.05. And his final season before, I don't know exactly what happened between 88 and 91, where he didn't pitch for the Rangers, but a pretty solid season in his last year before taking a few years off and then coming back and doing very well. In 88, as a 25-year-old, he had a 3.70 ERA, 206 and 2/3 innings while striking out 157, an ERA plus of 110. Did pretty solid there. Didn't walk a whole bunch of guys, didn't strike out too many, and didn't give up that many home runs. Pretty solid Rangers career, and clearly in the top 50 of Rangers career WAR, according to Baseball Reference, for Rangers pitchers. This guy is solid, and even though a lot of people haven't heard of him because he pitched in a really random era for the Rangers that people don't think about a whole lot, still a very solid Rangers career. Definitely worthy to be selected in this. This next guy, I already talked about him before, and I'm kind of cheating by putting him on here. But again, he's an international free agent sighting. That's right. At number 4, we have Yu Darvish, a great Rangers pitcher, a 4-time All-Star with the Rangers, was traded in 2017, was only with Texas from 2012 all the way to 2017, didn't pitch in 2015 because of the injury, finished top 10 in Cy Young voting twice, finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting in 2012. Again, he's not going to beat out Mike Trout in that year, but his first year in the big leagues, a 3.90 ERA and 191 in the 3rd innings and 221 strikeouts. His best year is year that he probably should have won the Cy Young. It's fine, definitely over it. In 2013, his second season in the big leagues, a 2.83 ERA in 32 starts, 209 2/3 innings, and 277 strikeouts, which I believe is second most in franchise history. I guess the most in franchise history among people who weren't named Nolan Ryan, which, again, Nolan Ryan was an absolute freak and pitched so often and struck out so many that nobody is going to catch up to his records. But, man, Yu Darvish sure got close. He sure got really freaking close, and it's just a huge bummer that he didn't play in Texas for his entire career, that he's not still here, but it's fine. We're all fine. He was an all-star this year, even though he fell off the back half. Whatever. He was very good and deserves to be mentioned in this list, even though I'm kind of cheating because I already talked about him. But, it's fine. The Rangers made a bet on him when they signed him internationally. But where you should go if you want to make a bet? That's right. You need to go to Bet Online. It's where the game starts. It's fantastic. It's the best place to go and bet on your favorite sports, whether you want to bet on the big game on Sunday. I read a statistic like 10% of America is going to bet on the Super Bowl or is planning on it, which is kind of insane. It's kind of a lot of people. But if you want to make some bets, Bet Online is the best place where you can go do it. BetOnline.net remains, like I said, the best spot for all your sports scores, podcast, and news this season. It's not just football. Bet Online has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates on current games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Bet Online, where the game starts. Now, let's take a look further on this list. We are on to the top 3 in here. That's right, we got some of the absolute biggest, baddest guys in Rangers franchise history that are going to be on here. At number 3, the guy who's a right fielder. Played with the Rangers in the 90s and a little bit in the 80s as well, and then came back and played in the 2000s. He had a very, very long major league career from 1986 all the way to 2006. Came up in the big leagues at age 20, finished his big league career at age 40, 20 years in the big leagues. That's right, it's Ruben Sierra, the right fielder who is a switch hitter, a 4-time All-Star, a Silver Slugger, and a home run derby champion. Made his major league debut in 1986, played 113 games there, had an OPS of 779, 16 home runs, and on-base percentage was never really his strength, 302, but a OPS of 779 as a rookie at age 20 in the big leagues is nothing to sneeze at. He made a big name for himself. The next year got some MVP votes, had a 30 home run season, a 771 OPS, and stole 16 bases. Also had 35 doubles, and I believe led the American League in at-bats in 643 at-bats that season. Pretty solid. His best year, he finished second in MVP voting, was with the Rangers in 1989 as a 23-year-old, was an all-star for the first time in his career, led the American League with 14 triples, 119 RBI, 543 slugging percentage, and 344 total bases. Also played in all 162 games. Had a slash line of 306, 347, and 543. That's an 889 OPS, which I believe, yes, was the best of his career. Really, really solid season. Also had another 25 home run season at age 25 in 1991, where he was an all-star again. Had 44 doubles, 5 triples, and an 859 OPS, finished top 10 in MVP voting again that year and was an All-Star, and then was traded from Texas to Oakland the very next year in 1992, but then would come back and play with Texas in 2000 and 2001, then would go away again to Seattle, and then would come back to Texas in 2003 after spending a season and a half with, a season with Seattle and half a season. No, sorry, scratch that. Came to Texas in 2003 at the beginning of the season, then was traded to the Yankees, where he would play 2.5 more seasons and then finish his career with 14 games as a 40-year-old in Minnesota. Pretty solid career in Texas. Played 10 years, 1,090 games, ended up with a slash line of 280, 323, and slugged 473 in his career. Just 4 points below 800, 180 career home runs, 34 career triples, 257 career doubles. I believe Elvis Andrus passed him on the career triples mark, but I'm pretty darn sure that 14 triples is a Rangers franchise record that is not going to be broken. Yes, Elvis did pass him. He finished with 44 triples. Michael Young has the most with 55. Elvis had 48. And again, Sierra only played 10 years with the Rangers. Also kind of wild that Pudge Rodriguez is top 5 in triples. Also kind of insane. Ruben Odor is 8th with 26, which I should have mentioned earlier, but I didn't, so sue me. But this guy was so good for the Rangers for such a long time. It would have been nice to have him for those playoff teams. He never played with a Rangers playoff team. Didn't play in 1999. I can't remember if that was a injury or what happened. Did get a little bit injury prone in 97 and 98, and then didn't play in 99. Also only played 20 games with the Rangers in 2000, but did play 94 in 2001 at age 35. Yeah, the early 30s for him were not super productive and were not super duper healthy, but his age 35 season with the Rangers in 2001 had a really solid season, 884 OPS in 94 games, hit 23 home runs and 22 doubles. Really solid, productive season for him, coming back and having a career resurgence a little bit with the Rangers. Not as much good stuff in the 43 games in 2003, but again, he was 37 years old, so what the heck do you expect? Now, I'm going to move on to number 2 on this list. Number 1 versus number 2 was a very difficult conversation with myself. I had some thoughts, some tranquil thoughts. I had to meditate. I had to pray about it. But number 2 is a 2-time MVP. That's right, it's Juan Gonzalez. Played most of his career in Texas, bounced around just a little bit, was on for the longest time, the only Rangers playoff teams, but was not quite able to make a difference. Won 2 MVPs, one in 1996, one in 1998, and finished 13th in MVP voting in 1999 when Pudge Rodriguez would win it. He also finished top 10 in 1993 and 1997. Kind of wild that he finished top 10 in MVP voting but wasn't an All-Star in 1997. Just absolutely insane. Played in Texas for 13 years, 1,400 games, just shy of 6,000 career plate appearances. Had a slash line of 293, on base 342, and 565. That's a 907 OPS with the Rangers in 1,400 games. That's absolutely insane. 372 career home runs with the Rangers, 21 triples, and 320 doubles. The guy was a monster, an OPS plus of 133 in his career in Texas. He leads the Rangers franchise in career home runs. He is more than 50 ahead of Rafael Palmeiro and almost 150 ahead of, actually it might be exactly 155 ahead of Pudge Rodriguez, who is in 4th. Just kind of bonkers how good this guy was for so long. I mean, he absolutely brought it with the Rangers. His career WAR in Texas in 1,400 games was 31.9 according to Baseball Reference. That is while playing mostly right field and not being, I don't remember him as a particularly fantastic defensive right fielder, but again was solid, a little bit below average defensively, quite a bit of actually negative defensive WAR over his 10-year Rangers career, negative 10.4 D-WAR, which I believe might be the worst among the Rangers, but they also had Rafael Palmeiro playing first base, so they probably weren't going to put him there. Probably could have played him a little bit more DH, but it's fine. He was a 6-time Silver Slugger, 3-time All-Star, home run derby champ, 2-time MVP, an absolute monster mashing machine for the Texas Rangers for 13 seasons. Played his high school ball in Puerto Rico in Vega Baja, Puerto Rico. I'm pretty sure I'm absolutely butchering that, but it's fine. I am a gringo. Please forgive me for my whiteness. But Juan Gonzalez was so stinking good for the Rangers. Every time I go back and look at his career baseball reference, it's just, I'm absolutely blown away by how well he did and for how long. Also, it's kind of wild that he made his major league debut at 19, didn't actually start getting consistent major league time until his age 21 season in 1991, but did play in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. Quite a long career for him, 17 total years in the big leagues, just under 1,700 games. This guy was a monster and deserves to be appreciated, even though he hasn't been coming to as many things, since he retired. But again, this guy deserves to be lauded and appreciated for the Rangers because he is one of the best players in franchise history and was an absolute monster mashing machine. Now, at number one, if you haven't guessed it by now, then what are you doing? You clearly have not paid attention to the Rangers since, I don't know, when was the last time you played? 2009? That's quite a while that you have not been paying attention to the Rangers. But this guy, obviously, it's Pudge Rodriguez at number one. Hall of Famer, MVP, World Series winner, not with the Rangers. 14-time All-Star, 13-time Gold Glove winner, 7-time Silver Slugger winner. His number 7 is retired with the Rangers, as it should be. Guy was incredible in Texas. Gosh, I wish so badly that he could have won it all in Texas, but I'm glad that he did get a ring somewhere and that he did eventually come back to Texas. I wish that it would have been the final place that he signed. I know he did play 2 more seasons with the Nationals. Also, it's absolutely insane to me that he played 111 games with the Nationals as a 38-year-old. He also played 44 as a 39-year-old. Did play 28 games in Texas. I don't know why he signed in Houston. It makes me so angry that he did, but he only played there for half season and did balance it out by coming back to Texas, but was an all-star from 1999 every season until 2001. I don't know why he wasn't in 2002. Maybe because I honestly have no idea. Played 108 games in 2002, wasn't an all-star, had an 895 OPS as a freaking catcher, but wasn't an all-star. 3 seasons after winning his MVP. I don't really understand. But in case you don't remember his MVP season stats off the top of your head, let me just go ahead and rattle those off. This is in 1999 as a 27-year-old. Played 140 games, 600 at-bats exactly on the dot, 35 home runs, 29 doubles, stole 25 bases, a slash line of 332, 356, 559. That's a 914 OPS, a 125 OPS plus. Guy was the best defensive catcher of his age, hands down, was fast, could hit the ball, could make contact. The only knock on his game, if you wanted to put a knock on his game, which don't you dare put a knock on his game, is that he didn't walk at an elite rate. But he didn't need to because he's too busy swinging the bat and going absolutely bananas. An unreal longevity as a catcher, 2,500 career games. This guy was a behemoth behind the plate. Did everything you could ever want and then some for a catcher. His offensive numbers are among the best for catchers of all time. He is right up there with the best defensive catchers of all time, if he's not the best defensive catcher of all time, which I honestly really think that he is. Suck at Yadier Molina. Yadier Molina couldn't hit anywhere near even some of the worst seasons that Pudge had in his best seasons. Pudge is just unreal to do it that well for that long and to be with the Rangers for that amount of time and to have his Hall of Fame cap, I believe, is the Texas Rangers. The guy is just unreal and deserves every single bit of praise. Also, really bummed that he's not doing the post-game shows anymore because just any random words of wisdom and stories from Pudge Rodriguez are an absolute delight for Rangers fans. Love going back and watching Pudge Rodriguez highlights because they're unreal. I mean, the pop times this guy had, and just the crazy stories from when the Rangers signed him, they weren't even looking for him. Plus, he delayed his wedding to make his major league debut. That is an extreme ball player type of thing to do. I mean, this guy is just an all-time great human being and an even better baseball player, and I'm very glad that I got to grow up watching this guy play baseball for the Texas Rangers. So that's it. That's my top 10 Rangers international signees. I cheated a little bit with a couple of guys, actually mainly just with Yu Darvish. I cheated with him, but it's fine. It's fine. Hopefully. It's kind of funny when I was looking up these numbers. One of the things that stood out to me is the guys that were top 10 in defensive WAR and some of the guys who were already on there. Leonis Martin already on there at 45. Jose Trevino already on there. Delano DeShields is on there. But Joey Gallo also on there at 36. And Leonis is on there with 1.5 defensive WAR at number 45 on this. And he is only going to get higher. He might end up in the top 10, maybe even above Elvis. I don't know. He really could end up above Elvis in like a decade with the crazy defensive WAR that he is already putting up. If he can be half decent offensively, that's going to be a dangerous player. But that's an episode for another time. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. If you have some thoughts you would like to share about my stupid rankings or anybody that I forgot, there is a serious possibility that I forgot. I am becoming more and more of a Rangers historian by the day. But I also didn't live through the entirety of Rangers history. So if there's some really great guy that I'm forgetting that I should have included, I try to do my best to include everybody that is worth including, but it is an extremely sincere possibility that I missed it. But if I did miss it, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Brice Paterik. Let me know, or you can tweet at the show at Locked On Rangers. You can subscribe on YouTube, and then you can leave your comment about what a silly man I am, but only after you subscribe. That's like the law or something. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.